This all matters because government protection can delay short-term pain, but it rarely eliminates it. It often creates bigger problems down the road. These policies can reduce incentives for innovation and entrepreneurship, lower overall productivity and wealth creation, and increase costs for consumers and taxpayers. Hello, welcome to this week's Economy. I'm your host, Dr. Vance Ginn. Thank you for joining me again today. As always, it's a pleasure to have you with me. It's time again, though, for some Econ 101. What exactly should we learn about economics, and what are some of the key insights that's happening? I've had this series. You can go back through my podcast episodes at vanceginn.substack.com or go on my YouTube, Let People Prosper channel, or wherever you get your podcast and look up these. But this is the next one in that series, so let's get right into it, all right? So the first thing I want to say is we shouldn't fear progress. It brings countless benefits. Just think about how much easier it is to make plans with a friend today than 30 years ago. You can send a quick text message and meet up in minutes instead of calling a landline and hoping they're at home to answer. That was always frustrating, right? Yet in the headlines, progress is often framed as a threat, from manufacturing jobs moving overseas to warnings that AI will cause mass layoffs. What's often forgotten, though, is that new industries rise to take their place. New jobs emerge. Entrepreneurs adapt and create. This continual cycle of innovation and renewal, what economist Joseph Schumpeter called creative destruction, was recently spotlighted by the Nobel Prize in economics, awarded to Joel Mokyr, Philippe Aghion, and Peter Howitt. I hope I didn't mess up those names too bad, for their work on sustained growth through innovation. For great analyses of the prize, check out Brian Albrecht's commentary and Justin Callais' deep dive. I put links to both of their Substack newsletters as well, which I hope you'll go ahead and subscribe to them because they provide a lot of good insights. So in today's episode of This Week's Economy, we're going to explore creative destruction, how government often tries to protect us from it, and why it's best left to run its course. Catch the whole conversation on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and visit my website, vanceginn.com, for much more information. So, lesson number one, what is creative destruction? Well, it was coined by economist Joseph Schumpeter. Creative destruction describes the ongoing process of innovation and entrepreneurship that replaces outdated products, services, and industries with new and better ones. Schumpeter wrote, quote, "The opening up of new markets, foreign or domestic, and the organizational development from the craft shop to such concerns as U.S. Steel illustrate the same process of industrial mutation, if I may use that biological term, that has incessantly revolutionizes the economic structure from within, incessantly destroying the old one, incessantly creating a new one. This process of creative destruction is the essential fact about capitalism," end quote. This principle captures the paradox of progress. To gain the benefits of innovation, some individuals and industries inevitably will lose out. While many become better off through progress, others may struggle to adapt. And I think it's important for us to recognize that. What are some real-world examples? Well, creative destruction happens every time a new innovation reshapes the economy. When smartphones replace flip phones, when streaming overtook DVDs and CDs, or when online retail disrupted traditional stores. Trade is another source of creative destruction, as it enables goods and services to be produced and provided more efficiently and effectively and affordably, improving access and lowering costs for consumers. Well, why does all this matter? Well, it's because progress always comes with a disruption. Some businesses, jobs, and industries will become obsolete as new technologies and methods emerge. But overall, creative destruction drives long-term prosperity, expanding opportunity, raising living standards, and giving us access to better products and services than ever before. Lesson number two. Government interventions to protect from creative destruction. Well, in an effort to shield people from the disruptions of creative destruction, governments often intervene. At first glance, that might seem compassionate, but remember, creative destruction is what drives innovation and long-term prosperity. Attempts to soften its short-term pain can, at best, delay the inevitable and at worst, distort markets by allowing policymakers to pick winners and losers. Not a good situation. Well, some real-world examples of this is that these interventions often take the form of antitrust actions, protectionist trade policies, regulations, tax carve-outs, and subsidies that favor specific industries or companies over others. At the state and local levels, they might appear as property tax abatements or corporate welfare. Policies that aim to protect workers from shifting industries, such as universal basic income or extended unemployment insurance, can also delay necessary adaptation to new technologies or changing markets. This all matters because government protection can delay short-term pain, but it rarely eliminates it and often creates bigger problems down the road. These policies can reduce incentives for innovation and entrepreneurship, lower overall productivity and wealth creation, and increase costs for consumers and taxpayers. It can also threaten long-term prosperity by preventing markets from adjusting naturally. In short, well-intentioned protectionism can end up protecting stagnation, slowing the very progress or process that leads to progress, opportunity, and a higher standard of living. Number 3 today is, why does creative destruction matter? Well, the disruption side of innovation is not a flaw, it's the very engine of progress. Creative destruction allows new ideas, products, and technologies to replace the old, raising living standards and expanding opportunity for all. It's what turns individual ingenuity into widespread prosperity. Entrepreneurship and competition are at the heart of this process. They challenge the status quo, forcing continuous improvement and rewarding innovation that meets people's needs more effectively. This principle is so fundamental that 2 of this year's Nobel Prize winners in economics were recognized for their research on sustained growth through creative destruction. Some real-world examples here are transportation offers a powerful illustration, right? The move from horses to cars to airplanes transformed how people live and work. Each new innovation disrupted the old system, but it also powered and opened doors to travel, greater mobility, and entirely new industries. The same principle applies to trade. When nations trade freely, each can specialize in what it produces best. The specialization drives efficiency, lowers costs, and expands global prosperity, even as some industries must adapt to new competition. This all matters because growth doesn't happen by preserving what is comfortable. It happens through competition and innovation. Creative destruction is the heartbeat of a dynamic economy. It's what drives the next breakthrough, raises living standards, and expands human flourishing. That's why protecting this process by defending open markets, entrepreneurship, and innovation is essential to sustaining prosperity for generations to come. So how do we apply these principles today? Well, allowing for creative destruction, manufacturing jobs are declining, and the wages of many of those jobs have long been modest. Yet, politicians, are trying to save the industry through industrial policy, a modern form of central planning. But America doesn't need more government direction, it needs more freedom. As I explained in my recent piece of the Daily Economy, sustainable growth comes from innovation and open markets, not subsidies and mandates. A recent International Monetary Fund study found that 40% of global employment is exposed to AI. It urged governments to implement robust regulatory frameworks to protect workers in AI-vulnerable jobs. While this may sound reasonable, overregulation threatens America's leadership in AI and many other places across the globe. It's also affecting what's happening in Europe and risks slowing the very innovation that drives progress and prosperity. Government interventions in recent years, there's been a growing push to use antitrust laws against major technology companies like Amazon and Google, often labeled as quote-unquote big tech, but these efforts misunderstand how competition works. Instead of fostering innovation as big as bad, this bad approach would punish success, discourage investment, and ultimately hurt consumers through fewer choices and higher prices. Similarly, tariffs and protectionist trade policies attempt to shield U.S. industries from competition abroad. Yet this, too, is an effort to block the natural process of creative destruction, protecting outdated industries rather than empowering innovations that lead to lower cost and better products. Even at the state level, we see government attempting to direct economic outcomes. The latest Texas budget doubled down on corporate welfare through constitutional funds, such as the Texas Energy Fund, the Water Fund, the State Highway Fund, the Nuclear Fund, I could go on. These programs are structured to bypass constitutional spending caps and funnel money to private contractors. Classic central planning tools dressed up in Texas branding. My final thoughts are that economist Joseph Schumpeter, which I hope you'll all go out and read, his idea of creative destruction is just as alive today as it was when he first coined it back in the 1940s. The recent Nobel Prize in economics underscores its continued relevance. This irrelevance. This principle matters because it's what makes human flourishing possible. It has powered every major leap forward, from airplanes to washing machines to smartphones. Each new innovation that improves our lives also replaces an older way of doing things. That change can be uncomfortable, but it's something to embrace, not fear. As we face the rise of AI and other transformative technologies, our focus shouldn't be on stopping change. It should be on ensuring we don't regulate away the very progress that will let people prosper. Thank you for joining me in this week's episode. For more resources and commentary from me, visit vanceginn.com and subscribe to my Substack newsletter at vanceginn.substack.com. Until next time, God bless you and let people prosper.